Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mission TV show in the special series that we're recording right on the exhibit hall floor of the 2015 General Conference here in San Antonio. And it's been an amazing time. And here today, right now, we've got Wesley Szamko, who is a president of a new territory. It's the TimorLeste mission.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you very much, John.
And Wesley, where in the world is Timor-Leste?
Well, most people, if they've heard of Timor-Leste, have heard it under its previous name of East Timor.
Okay.
It is now, the country's official name is Timor-Leste, and it's just, if you're familiar with Indonesia, it kind of comes down in a long string of islands, and right at the tip of that, above Australia, is where Timor-Leste is.
Okay, so I've got I got Google Earth open here, and you can see here's Africa, Saudi Arabia, here's India. Most people know where that is. You come down Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then Indonesia is this big archipelago of islands, and way down here is...
Right at the tip is Timor-Leste. It's half of an island and one little enclave here. This is also part of Timor-Leste. This is Timor-Leste, but this is all part of Indonesia here.
Wow.
And this island also belongs to Timor-Leste.
Okay. And how long has this island had its independence?
It actually first gained its independence. It was a Portuguese colony for approximately 500 years.
Wow.
And in the early 70s, it gained its independence.
As in 1970?
Yes.
Wow.
But then in about 2 weeks after that, Indonesia took over. And so for a period of almost 30 years, it was underneath Indonesian rule. And late 90s, early 2000 is when it was reestablished as an independent country. So it's one of the newer countries in the world.
Yes, so late 90s, early, that's, 15, 20 years.
2002 or 2004, I need to check, but approximately 12, 13 years ago is when Timor-Leste became an independent country again.
Amazing. And so when it became an independent country, of course, the Adventist Church wants to reach into that country as well. So what were the initiatives that it took towards doing that?
Well, from our records, actually the work began according to the Office of Statistics from the GC, I just found out a few days ago there was work actually quite a while ago. But in more recent history, there was no Adventists that we knew of in Timor-Leste. And during the Indonesian time, there were some Indonesians that came there, some literature evangelists. It began, but during the time of the restoration of independence, basically all of those people fled the country. And in around 2000, there was probably about 4 or 5 Adventists in the country.
Wow. Wow.
And it's a country of currently a country of approximately 1.1 million people.
So it's a substantial number of people.
Yes. Currently is in all of the Southern Asia Pacific Division. This is one of the areas that's considered unreached or least reached.
Right. And what's the major religion in that area?
Actually, Timor-Leste is 98% Catholic.
Really?
So there is a little bit of other Protestant religions, a little bit of other religions such as Islam, but 98% Catholic. I believe Timor-Leste and the Philippines are the two predominantly Catholic countries in Southeast Asia.
After 500 years of Portuguese rule, that would make sense.
Well, actually, it's an interesting thing. I could be wrong, but my understanding of history is that when the Portuguese left, there was only about maybe 20 or 30% Catholics in the country at that time.
Really?
So it was during Indonesian time that it became 98% Catholic.
Okay, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Well, from what I understand, and again, I'm not a historian, but my understanding is that during Indonesian rule, they took a census and said, are you Muslim or are you Catholic? And those were your options. So being perceived as the invading force that was Muslim, they said, well, we're not Muslim, and so suddenly the country became 98% Catholic.
Wow. So there's a lot of maybe Catholic by identity, but maybe not by heart.
Yes. In true practice, really the country is very much into animism, spirit worship, ancestor worship.
Really?
So,
okay.
But of course, with syncretism, sometimes that's just blended with Catholicism. most people don't really know much of what they perceive to be their religion, don't attend services, and just identify more with Catholicism as a culture.
Catholicism and spirit worship and all those kinds of things, there's not that big a difference anyway.
Well, I think really Catholicism is one of the religions that oftentimes is very open to taking on the characteristics of the religions of the people that they're near and just kind of accept that all in together. But when people are worshiping various idols or other things that they have in their home, and then that's replaced by various statues, it seems to be just one more thing to stick on the shelf.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I'm not going to comment maybe on how close that is to Catholicism, but I think for many people, the willingness of Catholicism to just embrace what you're coming with is sometimes something that makes it kind of an easy carryover.
Okay. All right. So you're here now, and how do you start? I mean, where do you even begin? I mean, I've never been in a situation where I've gone into an basically unentered place and had to start from scratch.
Well, we're very blessed. During the Indonesian time, there was a certain police officer who was fairly high up, who was stationed in Timor-Leste, who was from Indonesia, who was Adventist. And so during his time, he thought, how can I make an impact here? And so what he wanted to do was to try to find an individual from each of the different districts in Timor-Leste, that is a young person that he could send away to some of our Adventist schools. So one of those individuals that he found and sent was one of our current pastors, Pastor Nasio da Costa, who was sent over to Kupang, which is on this side of the island, where we do have fairly established work with the church, and we have Adventist schools down in this area. And so he was educated. He ended up going to college, became an Adventist, and chose to be a pastor, and came back in 1999, 2000, right at that time. And he started to help the work. He was asked by some of the church leadership how they could help. He said it would be great to have a Portuguese pastor, because at that time they chose as one of the official languages Portuguese, even though even currently maybe only 10 to 15% of the people speak Portuguese fluently. And so Pastor Ronaldo Castudio from Brazil was brought over as a volunteer also, worker, and together they worked. They started sending short-term missionaries as people came into the church. They sent them out as missionaries to other parts and other districts, and that's how things began to move forward in a very encapsulated summary.
Yeah, I'm sure. And so, what is happening now? What are your initiatives to spread the gospel in Timor-Leste?
Currently, we're working on a few things. During Pastor Custodio's time, there was a radio station that was started in collaboration with Radio Novo. Boy, my Portuguese is terrible, but Radio Nuevo Tiempo. I won't even try with the accent because, again, just not good at Portuguese. So that radio station actually assisted in helping to reach some of the people in the city of Dili, the capital city. But in addition to that,
right up here.
Yeah. What we're trying to do, the radio kind of fell into disrepair. Some of the equipment stopped working and was off the air for a couple years. We worked with AWR to get it back on the air.
Excellent.
So right now it's broadcasting within Dili, but we're trying to strengthen that radio broadcast and to create more programs in the more common language of Tetun, which is spoken. It's the most widely spoken language in the country, and then to expand its reach so that we can reach a larger percentage of the country. So that's one initiative. We're also trying to get an education system going. So right now there's no Adventist education. Most of our members experience extreme difficulty and persecution in the country when they become Adventists. Physical abuse, kicked out of families, death threats, other things like this. Almost 100% of our members who are baptized experience this. And one of the other things is their children are constantly facing Sabbath confrontation because there's mandatory Sabbath attendance in the schools throughout the nation. And so what we're trying to do is find ways that they can get an education and also be true to their faith in addition to hopefully building some connections with the community as we offer quality education.
Yeah.
Because even with the challenges of starting a new nation in a developing country, the education system, while they're working hard to try to make it better, is very lacking because of a lack of teachers and huge overcrowding of the classrooms,
right,
and lack of resources. So even to get a good education, we're hoping that we can make a contribution in that sense.
So the education has really been the backbone of the Adventist Church throughout its history, and that...
Yeah. And the medical work is the other thing. We talk about medical work being the right hand of the gospel. And so what we're trying to do also, we find if we send Bible workers in who want to teach people the Bible, at one time that was great, and people were eager to hear about the Bible, and it still is. But now the existing religious authorities in the country, there's a lot of talk against some of the smaller denominations, and so there's a high level of suspicion and a high level of distrust towards anyone coming in to teach the Bible.
I see.
So if you go into a community now to teach the Bible, it's just completely ineffective. So we're looking at ways to build relationships with people through health, through education, through media, through publications, to be able to then go in, and as we establish relationships through maybe a stop smoking course or other things like this, to then be able to take that and as the doors open, offer people the opportunity to learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Wonderful. So what kinds of resources, what kind of help are you looking for and needing?
Well, one of the challenges in a developing country is, especially one that's gone through years of turmoil, they estimate that in a country of about 1 to 1.1 million people now, they estimate during the Indonesian rule, between the fighting and other things that took place, approximately 200,000 people were killed during that period of time.
Wow.
So during that, also huge unrest where the majority of the population was displaced. And so as a result of that, most people have not gotten a high level of education. And even in our church members, on average, I think I can probably count on my two hands how many people have gotten an education beyond a high school level education.
Wow.
So what we need is basically leadership in every way, shape, and form. But we also, if people were to say, I want to come as a missionary to Timor-Leste, we need people who are willing to come and volunteer, but willing to stay long enough, because they need to be able to learn the local language.
Okay.
And unfortunately, even to just provide translators from our membership, we don't have enough.
Right.
And so we need people who are willing to come to short term to maybe work on some specific projects, but also others maybe who would like to come for 2 or 3 years, learn the language, and really make a substantive difference.
Yeah, and also there is the opportunity and the possibility of coming for life.
Well, yes. I've been thinking a lot over the last couple days as we've been hearing in the GC meetings about some of the Adventist heritage. And these people who didn't go over with the idea, I'll put in a little bit of time, but in the back of their mind, they're constantly thinking, I want to do this, I got this house here, how am I going to deal with this and this? And really their heart and their mind is still at home.
Yeah.
But our early Adventist missionaries, they went with the idea of, this is my new home.
Yes.
This is where I'm going.
Yes.
There's not a lot of that anymore.
We do
I
have...
myself am challenged with that sometimes.
Yeah, we do. There are some out there. I know some myself with our Jesus for Asia missionaries. They're there. They're taking on the responsibility of raising young people. They're going to be there for 20, 30 years until the Lord calls them home, and they're good with that.
And praise God for the people who God has put that on their heart, and they have that level of commitment and willingness to lay things aside to really serve Christ. I think that's what's needed for the finishing of the work around the world.
Yes.
Especially in unentered areas or least reached areas like Timor-Leste.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways it reduces some of the conflicts in raising our youth. About the third culture kids. They're not really like, part of the country that they're missionaries to, but they're not really part of the, culture back home, and so they end up being these third culture kids. And so when you commit to being there, but anyway, this is an option, and it's not for everybody, but it definitely is something for those. And a lot of the people that I know that went and became like that, they became like, they made that commitment after they were there. So lead on step by step and follow God.
And I think the first step in any service to God is, first of all, to follow what God's placing on your heart.
Yes.
And then to make that commitment to say, I'm going to follow God whatever he leads me to next.
Exactly.
And as long as we have that lifelong commitment, God will direct our steps.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is exciting. So you need not just Bible workers, but teachers, medical missionaries to establish all these industries.
You know, for people who are looking maybe for more short-term volunteer work, right now we need people to come in and help with construction projects.
Okay.
We have 2 places where we need to build churches. We don't have any membership with the skill and the capacity to do construction work.
Wow.
And because of the huge previous United Nations presence in the country, and also the very large NGO presence, you know, there's some great work that's done through those organizations, but they usually come in and they don't care how much it costs to do something. They just fork out the money and get it done, which leaves the economy completely out of proportion. So the cost of doing things and the expense to hire people to do things at this professional level is very expensive. So to build a church, a very, very simple building in Los Palos here, where we'd like to fix the existing building that we have, you know, quotations that we get in coming from local agencies are like, you know, $100,000.
Wow.
So it's just not money that we have.
Yeah.
So people with construction skills in masonry, and even just, you know, someone who would like to come for a year and help with general maintenance, that would be a blessing.
Okay.
We're starting a school, our 13th Sabbath mission offering this year. Part of that for this very quarter is going to be coming to help us start our very first school.
Praise the Lord.
And to construct a school.
Praise the Lord.
We're going to be starting this as an English language school, or in the English language.
Okay.
As an international school.
So that opens.
So teachers who would like to come, we're
Sure.
going to be putting more and more calls on the AdventistVolunteer.org website for teachers.
Okay.
So people who would like to come to teach, we need those.
Okay.
Individuals who would like to work with media and who would
Okay.
like to come. You know, I was sharing with you earlier, right now in the country, we would like to get a television station started. Not that we have the capacity or the money to do that, but there's an open window where right now the process of being able to get a license to broadcast over the air is simple and almost free.
Wow.
And so this is, you know, in other countries it costs, if you want to buy a license, you're going to pay $1-2 million, even in some of the developing countries.
Right.
But here it's free, if we can get the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
So those are some of the areas where volunteers can help.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how do people get in touch with you? How do they get involved with this?
I think probably the best way is maybe to email me directly.
Okay.
tlmpresident@adventist.asia. Right now, we don't have a website that we have. We're working towards that. We want to make sure that when we put something on the internet, it's representative of Christ. But yes, or also we're going to be posting for the coming year. We're going to start posting volunteer positions, and so they can go to AdventistVolunteers.org. Or even just, you know, contacting through our division office, Southern Asia Pacific Division.
Okay.
If they contact the Office of Missions there, with Pastor Douglas Venn, or Ernesto Douglas Venn.
Yes.
He can help direct people to us as well.
Okay, so they would contact him through what, an email or website? Do they have
the SSD.org has a website.
Okay.
And so they can find his contact information under missions on the website as
Okay,
well.
again, your
as
email?
well as other needs in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So
And your email again?
it's tlmpresident@adventist.asia.
Okay, wonderful. Well, this is really exciting, and we wish you all the best. And
Thank you very much.
would love
John,
to.
if it's okay,
Yes.
I know you're probably pressed from time and I'm talking too much.
No problem.
But I just would like to reemphasize the one other thing that we talked about before.
Okay, you can
You know,
make talk to the audience here.
I would really like to encourage our world church to return back to the conviction that we had at the beginning of systematic giving. I want to testify and to share with your viewers, you know, the system works. We've been extremely blessed by the tithe funds that have come through to help us in many, many different areas. Right now, we actually have received, as far as tithe funds, more than what we can use with the people that we have. And so we're very blessed. The system works.
The tithe
The tithe
is
is channeled in through through the division, through the general conference, and is distributed according to needs in the different areas.
But it can be used for pastors and Bible workers' salaries only.
Right.
So these construction projects, the school
cannot be used.
Yeah. So you need other.
So what's really lacking in our church today, and we've heard about it here at the GC meetings, is mission offering.
Yes.
I don't know if most of your viewers even remember that our Sabbath school offerings, the ones where we get out our nickels and dimes that Mom found in the ashtray of the car and give to them for offerings, that's what goes to move the work of the church forward. So I would like to encourage our viewers, let's get back to a concept of systematic giving, not just 10% for tithe. Yeah. What percentage are you going to give for your local conference and your local church? What percentage are you going to give to the mission offering, which is our Sabbath school offering? What about our 13th Sabbath offerings? Sometimes we don't even show the 13th Sabbath offering program in our church anymore, let alone give offerings for it. Or other churches, I know, they say, we have our own projects. We don't support the GC offering and these other things anymore. We do our own stuff.
Yeah.
When did that happen? How is that godly? How is that us working together and being a unified church? If we all would support these things, not just with our dimes and nickels, but maybe if we would say, instead of me buying my third car, which sits parked in the car, or my motorcycle for the summer, I'm going to give a special gift to God. We don't do birthday thank offerings anymore. We don't do investment projects. There was a time in our church where we would go and we'd set something up and say, God, if you bless this, I'll give this percentage to you. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
So I would like to again appeal to your listeners. Let's get back to systematic giving. Let's find a way to give sacrificially, because the offering money that's needed, which is money that can be used for anything, that money is needed desperately all over the world for projects to move things forward. There's so much our church could do. We can have the expertise. We have the knowledge. God has gifted us with prophetic wisdom to know how to do things. But the resources are sitting in our pockets, and it's not getting out.
Yeah.
So that's an appeal I'd like to make. Consider what you would like to do personally for systematic giving and for mission giving and for the giving of the rest of our church, so that our church can move forward with power and strength and not worry about need for resources. God's gifted our church with more than enough resources. We just got to get it out of our pocket into the field.
Yes, and you're talking about Sabbath school giving. Very simple to do. Just put it in the offering plate, put it in that blue envelope that goes around the Sabbath schools in the morning.
And maybe make it a commitment. When we teach our children, don't teach them with dimes and quarters. Get some paper out and put it in the offering plate, because it's going to the work of God. That is one of the best places for evangelistic mission giving.
Yes.
And there's more than enough left in your pocket to give to whatever project you're inspired by.
Yeah. The statistic is right now that the normal Adventist, the average North American Adventist gives $21 a year to foreign missions. And this is a man that has to deal with that. This is the effect that he's feeling as he's got these plans. It's free, it's cheap to go, almost free to go on television. The barrier is so low, and yet he's not able to go there because there's no resources. And this is the effect of our lack of giving to the mission program. This is actually why we started missiontv.com, is because as we travel through Asia, we see the effects of the lack of giving to systematic giving to foreign missions. The average North American Adventist gives about $21 a year to our foreign mission project, which is nothing. And people like Wesley have to deal with that. They're like, for instance, they could go into television. It's almost free, but they don't have the resources to do it because there's no mission giving. And so I, with all my heart, believe that this is God's end time issue with the people living in the Day of Atonement. Malachi chapter 3, verse 1 sets that whole passage up to verse 12 in a Day of Atonement message, Day of Atonement time. And what is the issue God has with his people during that time? Bring all the tithes into the office, into my house, that there may be meat in my house that can take the bread and give it to the people that are starving in darkness. And so this is God's plan. This is God's plan to prepare his people for the end times, is that we give up our greed. We overcome our greed. We overcome the Laodicean attitude, is mixing truth with money, with wealth, with a comfortable lifestyle. and put and sacrifice so that people like Wesley can take this gospel and take it to people that we will meet in heaven someday. This will result in people in heaven. And so I just urge you, especially the 13 mission offering. I know that the world budget that's on the tithe envelope, 25% of that doesn't go to the foreign field. It supports programs here in America that supports the foreign field. But if you want it all to go to the front lines, 13 Sabbath offering and the sacrificial giving. There's a special offering that comes towards the end of the year. Anyway, we'll talk about that more. But God bless you as you purpose in your heart to, again, this is an appeal from the front lines, a guy that knows, a guy that's dealing with the consequences of our lack of systematic giving to foreign missions. Purpose in your heart to sacrifice. Give a second tithe. God will bless you. The beautiful promise at the end of Malachi 3 is if we respond by bringing all the tithes into the storehouse. God bless until we see you again next time on the Mission TV show. Thank you very much.